Well, blessed Wednesday to you as we come to you with your daily encouragement. Now, at first, when I read these verses and the reflection of today, if you look on the calendar, it is not a very encouraging verse, and yet it is. It is the story of the holy innocents. Now, if you have been wondering whether Saint Stephen, the first Christian martyr, had anything to do with Christmas, or if you've been wondering that maybe the speculation of John and his quote unquote Christmas story were a little bit unconnected to the story of the season, the story of the Holy Innocents cannot be denied. It is part of Matthew's reflection about what happened around Jesus' birth. And it's a very tragic story of a mad king. And while there have been many historical speculations about this, in fact, historians have tried to find the exact date of this happening in order to get closer to the history of when Jesus was born. There are not even one historian that denied that this not only could have happened, but probably did happen. Herod, during the time of Jesus' birth, was a maniac. Herod was a megalomaniac, and it was not uncommon for him to act in such a cruel manner and kill, yes, even all the male children in order to keep his throne. And so we have in Matthew chapter 1 an escape to Egypt. Now, I might say in the time frame, we still haven't gotten to the visit of the wise men as far as our church calendar, but it is good to reflect upon the cost of Jesus being born. Because as eternity goes into time, we are reminded that sometimes there's a cost to this interruption, a tragic cost sometimes. And here is a side of that tragedy that dare not be forgotten. And so in Matthew chapter 2, beginning with verse 13, now after the wise men had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up and take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, according to the time that he had learned from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing in loud lamentations, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled, because they are no more. Now, as we reflect upon this, I'm going to go in a little bit of a reverse order. In timeline, we have two words, some might even say pregnant words, from Bible prophecy, from Jeremiah, and also from Isaiah. And what they are is words that were spoken many years ago, before Jesus was even thought of or even born. And what they were is, once again, when Matthew shows the fulfillment of these Bible verses, what he's talking about is wondering whether God is still with Israel, whether God still has a plan through Israel, whether God is going to continue to, as in the psalmists say, still fight with us. Because there are many psalms that speculate whether the Lord is still on our side. And for Jeremiah, when he talks about Rachel mourning for her children, she is in mourning because, according to Jeremiah, when he first gave this prophecy about children going into exile, children being lost, sometimes even killed, and wondering whether all the hopes and the promises of the patriarch of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, and Joseph and his brothers had been lost forever. And so it is in this context that Matthew finds fulfillment in the words of Jeremiah, in the words of Rachel. Rachel is mourning not just for the famous of her children, but all of her children, including the ones who are 2 and under, sometimes by the world forgotten, mistreated. She's weeping for all of her children. And so it is, unfortunately, in this Holocaust. Whether it be the one that happened after World War II or during World War II or happened during this time, Rachel is still weeping for her children, and this verse applies. The other thing that Matthew finds fulfillment is that while Joseph and Mary and Jesus went to escape this torture in Egypt, Matthew finds fulfillment in that just as the people of God, Israel of God, the sons of Jacob, came out of Egypt, so too will the Messiah come out of Egypt and identify himself as a son, a true son of Israel, coming out of the place where they were in exile. You see, all of these were common descriptors of what true Israel was about, and more importantly, find their fulfillment in the actions of Jesus, showing credentials, cred that he is the Messiah. You see, one of the mistakes we make with these prophecies is thinking that they don't have other smaller fulfillments before the ultimate fulfillment that they have in Jesus, and that is misreading Bible prophecy. Jesus, by his actions, and sometimes even by actions that are unknown to him, is acting in a great manner as a true son of Israel should. And so in this passage, Matthew is showing that Jesus is the Messiah. But it nonetheless shows that there was great cost in him being the Messiah, in him identifying with Israel. It meant that even innocent ones will find their death, but more importantly, all of us in his sacrifice, all of us in his forgiveness of sins, all of us in his mercy can find grace in him. And it is for that that we have to keep in mind, even for the interruptions, even for the times where things have gotten risky and others have lost their mortal life. There is still the promise of forgiveness and eternal life in Jesus Christ. And that is what gives us encouragement, even as we recount these tragic events. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Merry Christmas. We'll see you tomorrow.